just that battle and for Kaylee to be healed, it's very individualistic for her.
Right.
What she needs is very specific, and I think that can be said all across the board for anyone suffering through addiction or mental health
Exactly.
as a whole. So, as we were going through that today, just hearing things from a modern medicine perspective as opposed to a more holistic, natural approach, we are really brainwashed, you guys. It was still. I'm grateful for the opportunity to get her what she needs because we have to go through like the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta network so that the insurance will pay for it. I can't
Right.
get what she needs because I can't pay for it. And still, it was the medication push, and they were asking me about, does she need a flu shot? And I was like, please do not give her a flu shot. The last time she got a flu shot, she got type A, type B, and strep. So, and then the vaccine, she was due for another vaccine. I'm like, well, what vaccine is it? What's in that specific vaccine and what is it for? Now I've become that person because I have watched everything that we think is there to help us destroy my child.
Right. And I think somebody made a good point. And they said, they're giving away the flu shot for free, and nothing's free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Think about it.
Why would you give away a flu shot? The flu's not that bad. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I've had the flu, and it's
Well, it is. It sucks.
I
You
mean,
think
it
you're
sucks,
dying.
but it's a week of
Yeah. Purging it out of your
right.
system.
And another thing that they don't really tell you is that the flu viruses, they morph constantly. You're never getting
Right.
a
The same
vaccine.
strain.
Exactly. You're getting last year's.
So
So it's
there's
not
something
really
else. There's a new, bigger, badder flu out there. It's not even protecting you from it.
exactly.
Why even bother? Yeah. So when it was, I'm so glad that my lights were turned on, and that I've kind of seen the way things truly are because for years I was like, yeah, flu shot, yeah, vaccine,
Right.
yeah, give her whatever. Yeah, we'll try that medication. She'll be on 8 different medications at a time. And I thought that was normal. And I look back now and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why?
Well,
But that's programming. That's just how we are. And it's not until the lights come on and you start to do your own research and be your own advocate that you realize there are so many more avenues out there.
right. We don't have to, do what we've been told. I've never been
No.
good at that anyway.
Right. I don't know why I let that part of my life be controlled when all the rest of my life I was like, nobody tells me what to do.
It's my house,
Nobody
buddy. I
puts
do what
baby
I
in the
want.
corner. Right? I say it still. I do what I want. Don't tell me what to do.
I like how you referenced Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
And I'm all South
Nobody
Park.
nobody puts baby in the corner.
Eric Cartman.
Those are our personalities just coming
Yeah.
out. Long live the 80s. But really, I really hope that if you guys get anything from what we're doing here, it's to learn how to be your own advocate, do your research.
Question everything.
Question everything.
I encourage my children to do this. I encourage
Me
them
too.
to especially
Get on your
question
teacher's
me.
nerves.
Yeah. Like, you question me, because
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, do you know The Prophet by
Yeah.
Khalil?
Yes.
Well, he has this, thing on children, section on children. I think it's so beautiful what it says. And one of my favorite parts is, do not try and change your children, but allow your children to change you.
Gosh, mine have changed me so much.
So much.
So much.
So much. I was just telling somebody, like, my son makes me laugh every day, but, I was getting him up for school. And this was last year, like kind of the end of the year, like April. And, I wake him up. I'm like, hey, baby, time to get up. He's like, where are we going? And I said, to school. He said, again? He's so mad.
I don't want to do that school thing.
Again?
Again? Why do I have to keep doing that shit?
Yeah, babe. Whole nother month of this.
Oh.
He's funny.
He is funny, though.
He really is funny.
Really
It's
funny.
a joy.
I miss those years a little bit. I mean, except for at that age, they can pretty much wipe their own selves and stuff.
Yeah. I'm still asked.
Does he?
Asked.
Mom!
Mama. Actually, that's where we do our reading. So
On the toilet.
yes.
That's normal. Everybody does that.
Totally.
Right? Absolutely.
But, getting back to a little bit, too, of what we were talking about, she told me when you went to the doctor, she was kind of, not combative or anything, but maybe a little argumentative about your opinion.
Right. and I had recorded the whole thing,
Right.
which I'd sent to you and sent to all of my friends. I was like, listen to this. I mean, it'll change your life. It was a 15-minute recording, and I listen to it all the time because I always get more and more. The doctor at Progressive Medical, I get more and more out of it. And I was like, I really want you to hear what he had to say because I might miss something, because she's got like small bowel inflammation, adrenal stress, delayed food allergies, and low thyroid function. And those were the
Uh-huh.
four things that were found out just from the urine and the saliva analysis. And so when I was talking to her, I was telling her, years and years of these antibiotics and these SSRIs and mental health medications and pain medications. I mean, my child has never not been on something that's destroyed her gut, and it's causing these toxins to leak into her blood, go straight to her brain. And
Right.
so epigenetics, which we've talked about kind of briefly, and we will some more next week, where it just lights up her genes that are prone
Yep.
to have these issues already. And so she's lived like this for 18 years. Like my child is slowly fading away and it's coming out in her skin, acne, but like rashes all over her body, joint pain, muscle pain, just. And so when I say that to the physician, she says some of that's true and some of it's not. And I respect her because that she knows what she knows, and she's a wonderful physician. I would never discount or discredit her. But
Right.
for me and my family, we're going to get away from medication. So she did prescribe her something for her. I guess it was like Zyrtec of some sort or whatever for all of her like stomach issues. And we'll fill it. Will she take it? No. I mean, we're not going to take it. Period. And I want to find that way of no more medicine. Period. There has to be another way just to keep ingesting pills and covering up everything that is symptomatic. It's insanity to me. If you guys, I know we just keep on and it's like beating a dead horse, but maybe it will sink through. Maybe it will like
Right.
seep through because it's the way of the world right now and we've got to be the ones that change it. We have to stand up and say we want our lives back.
And I think there's also a stigma, like trying to discredit people who do their own research and who educate themselves, about vaccines and, modern medicine and things like that, because they're saying, oh, you got your degree on Google? Well, no, Google doesn't produce content. Google's a search engine
That's
that
right.
leads you to content, which is, there's another doctor who's equally accredited who, spends
Mhm.
his time putting out this information, not for profit and not
That's
for
right.
gain, and doesn't have a business with it. He has a website, and I looked at it and I researched, and honestly, I'm getting all my information from experience, which is where you gain information.
That's
You
right.
can be told something over and over. I was told that, I needed to um, not drink so much or stop drinking. I was told that, but it wasn't until the consequences of my actions got so bad that I couldn't live with myself anymore that I even wanted to change. And I think that's where we're missing, we're not crazy
No, that
because we have
lived
a different
experience is
opinion.
everything.
Exactly. Lived
And
experience
yes,
that's all you really
I mean, I'll
have.
tell you this right now, the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and other agencies are really starting to see the benefit of
Hmm.
that peer lived experience, and they're using it as a tool, and as a vehicle, for people they're getting paid to do it now. I have my parent peer support certification. I haven't used it like I want to now, and I've got to get my credits to update it in January, but I fully intend on applying that because I know that my message, and I know I've tried everything that didn't work. I drank entire big bottles of wine until I couldn't even see straight and ended up getting a DUI, and I know what doesn't work, right?
Right.
And so I also
And
know
that's
what
half the battle.
works. Right.
Knowing what doesn't work is really
And that's who I am. I've got to go through that. You can tell me what's right or how to do things all day long. I won't listen to you. It's like I'll tell you, yeah, I'll do it or whatever, but I have to live through it. I have to do it in order. And that's the story I get to pass on to hopefully somebody that's not like me, right?
right.
That will that will
That will
listen.
listen.
Don't be like me. Right. Don't
Well,
be
that's
like
why we're
me.
doing this whole show. Don't be like us.
Yeah. Don't be like us.
Hashtag.
Hashtag. Is that our new hashtag? Me too.
Too.
But really, you guys, it just the more awakening that I have, the more it's all starting. The pieces of the puzzle that never fit together for me are all coming together. It's like a magnet now.
Right.
I don't even have to place these puzzle pieces. They're just going where they need to go.
Right.
Doesn't it feel like that for you? Is that a good,
Absolutely.
did I just make a really good
Love it.
analogy there?
A magnet puzzle.
A magnet puzzle. Yay!
Hello.
Hi, Chrissy.
Hi, Pat. How are you doing?
Hi,
Good.
Pat.
How are
I'm
you?
also Christina, though.
We're both
Okay.
Chrissy and Christina. We answer to both.
Okay. So this should be easy.
Yeah.
So this, I'm computer illiterate. I got Aliza here. So am I supposed to go online here or something?
No, you're on air. We are live.
Oh, okay. So we'll just do it this way. So
This
how
is
we,
the
do
way.
you want Aliza to call in too?
No, if she's there with you, if y'all want to be both on speaker, that's fine. We can hear
Okay.
you great.
Okay. You can hear us right here?
Yep.
Okay. That's good. Say hi to
Perfect.
Aliza.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Aliza's,
Wonderful.
Aliza's one of my board members on with Not One More.
Fantastic. And I heard she has a new book.
She has a book, and I'll let her explain that more to you whenever you want us to start talking about that.
Okay, perfect.
So I don't know what the format is here, so
There isn't one.
Yeah, we just go with the
We
flow.
I love
wing
it.
everything in life.
I love it. All right,
Yes.
good.
So first, Pat, do you want to tell us a little bit about Not One More?
Sure. So I'm the president of Not One More. We have 15 chapters across the United States of parents, families, and friends that are dealing with some kind of substance use disorder within the families or within our communities.
Mhm.
Basically, we started about 8 years ago, and we're just seeing kids that were dying of heroin overdoses, and they were being publicized in the newspapers, and it was kind of a shock to our community, you know.
Right.
So we started a group of concerned parents and friends and recovering addicts to try to make a difference and change how people were looking at it, because everybody was kind of downing us in the way that they were looking at it. First of all, there was a stigma attached. Like I said, even 8 years ago, people didn't want to talk about it,
Right.
and they were saying only the bad people are addicts and they come from bad families and whatnot. So we created this group. We went to a city council meeting with about 350 people, and they welcomed us there. And that was the night that Not One More was born, on February 12th, 2012.
Beautiful.
So,
That is wonderful.
Great
so,
numbers.
so what that is created was, and we little did we know, we were just a local group of local people just wanting to do something locally, you
Right.
know. But some people caught word of it, and we went on the Dr. Phil show. A couple of people, they did an intervention, which I really didn't like. I don't like newspapers sensationalizing addicts and following them around into, for ratings. You know what I'm saying? So that was our first introduction into the media sensationalizing what was going on. And by that, they weren't, to me, they were trying to get ratings more than anything, especially when they're following addicts around, using,
Right.
buying, and at
Exactly.
any one time, these guys could have died. And it really,
I'm not a fan of that either.
Not
I,
even a
I
little
am
bit.
not. I am not. I won't let our group do that again. We'll get in newspaper articles, but not at the expense of somebody else's demise. I would say,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because
yeah.
we're
So
important
that's what we
people.
do. We just spoke
Yeah.
at a high school last night, Aliza and I, and one other mom. I take people with us to share their stories. We take recovery with us. We take. I'm a father of an addict.
Okay.
My son has, SUDS, and he's been doing this for over 10 years, and we've been following him, and we've had to learn how to deal with this in a way that our anger wasn't the primary source of us trying to get him fixed,
Right.
because as parents, that's what we did. We tried to fix him. And little did we know how frustrating that is. We had to step away from that and just start loving him through this.
Right.
and learning how to do that. And basically that's what Not One More does is, we try to, if not coach up a parent, but let them realize that they also need work on themselves too.
Right.
And in that they find their own recovery, and in that they can also find out that it's not their fault.
Right.
A lot of parents blame themselves for this.
And I think that's one of the missing pieces really in recovery, and why our numbers are so, recovery numbers are so low. It's like a 3% recovery rate, which is within the margin of error. So, who knows kind of thing.
Right.
But I know people do recover because I've seen it. I
There's
experience it
beautiful
firsthand.
I was
recovery
about
out
to
there.
say
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
are recovering in your own
Yeah,
life.
and the thing is, we don't just social not sensationalize, but
Right.
talk about people that are dealing with addiction and substance use disorder within the families and stuff, because in our communities, what we're dealing with is now how to work with it,
Right.
and we know it's not going to be done by a sword. We can't go in there and beat it out of anybody. We can't jail our way out of it.
Although we've tried.
Yeah.
And that's,
I like
and
that too. We can't jail our way out of
Yeah.
this because
it
that's
just,
what they're doing. Like that's, and
Yep.
we talk about this a lot too, but that's because because our government doesn't know what else to do. So they're just like, well, put the mentally and criminally insane or whatever,
Right.
put the
well,
addicts and the mental health people in jail because we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
right, we lump it into one big ball.
Right.
A drug addict as a criminal, and they're not criminals.
No.
They're
No.
far from being criminals. They have a disease that needs to be taken care of, and or at least addressed, in a way that maybe they can start working on it. And as we see over prolonged time of use, it starts turning into a mental issue.
Right.
It's not just the
Absolutely.
substance use, but it's also starts turning into a mental issue. And like I said, I live it with my own son,
Hmm.
and watching him go through this. And a matter of fact, that's what we've been doing here for the last few days. We've been dealing with him, and you know what? And he was afraid to talk to me, and I, talked to him finally today, and he goes, "I'm sorry, I'm bothering you." And I go, "You're not bothering me. You're my son.
Right.
I love you always, and it's always been that way." But
Exactly.
but you know what? Here's the thing: is people with substance use disorder have a shame they have in themselves.
Hmm.
And I think Eliza can explain a little bit more on that end of it. When we get her speaking here. But so our main thing is to get out there and educate a community, support a community, and then also put awareness out there on what we're seeing, especially with addicts. I mean, people that are dealing with the substance uses out there, we're seeing a much more deadlier mix of drugs going on.
Much deadlier. Yes.
So, we're seeing the fentanyl, we're seeing the pill presses, the illegal pills, we spoke at a high school last night, and this young man spoke out in the back that his brother 3 weeks ago overdosed, and they brought him back, but his uncle died of a fentanyl overdose from an illegally made prescription pill, and it had fentanyl in it, and that was 3 months prior to that. Yeah.
Right.
So, and so what we're telling these kids, this is in our community, and, and it's right here in our schools, and it starts right here,
Exactly.
within the school, the school system. I mean, that's the biggest social circle we see out there is the kids in the schools. I mean,
Exactly.
obviously we all went to school, so we know that was our social circle.
Hmm. And I find
Yeah.
that it's important, and it's something near and dear to my heart to educate children at the onset of addiction. The average onset is 13 to 16 years old.
Right.
And it's really important to strike while the iron's hot. We don't have to wait until it's bad,
Right.
to
Before
help
when it's
people.
already
Or
got them. Like we
exactly,
got to get on the back end of
I
it.
mean, my addiction started at 11 years old, and I was
Right.
covering up a lot of pain with it, but I just, I don't know where my life would be now if I had listened to somebody. There wasn't any kind of education. This was in the 90s, so
They're just, but we all know as adolescents,
right,
us as kids, we've all been there.
exactly,
Nobody, especially somebody older than us, can tell us what to put in or what not to do, because we
exactly.
automatically, as soon as somebody told us not to do something,
Well, I got
are
to do that.
to do that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to
It
do
must
that
I'm going to
thing.
try that later.
it must be good, you know? So, but that's what we're telling these kids. So we don't even really go in there and tell them not to do drugs.
Right. That's
You
the
know?
anti-message. We don't want to tell
Yeah.
them that.
Right.
What we tell them is, listen, I have no control over you more than you have control over me. And I go, and so we're going to simplify this. Control yourself and know what you're putting into your body if you
Right.
decide to use.
Give them
Beautiful.
the power.
Yes.
That's
You
what they
know,
want. They
and
want
that's what we
that.
do. And
Yeah.
that's the awareness part. Be aware of what you're putting in your body.
Right.
You know,
I think that. Uh-huh.
I have a few mothers that come with us and share. I mean, we share all over, right? We do lectures, and whether it's in a university, community colleges, high schools, middle schools. We just did a elementary school for Red Ribbon Week, and that was 5th and 6th graders. The juvenile
Nice.
probation department we speak at all the time, and that's our biggest one is the juvenile probation department, because these kids are not addicts yet.
Right.
What they are is they got caught using, and the juvenile probation department we speak at is a diversion program.
Mm-hmm.
So what these kids are the kids who got caught in the park smoking a little weed, having a little drinky poo, somewhere, and
some of them have been caught with actual drugs.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, most of them is weed and alcohol, but some of them, and they laugh, when we get up there and they think we're a joke, and then it's sad because we see them at meetings, a couple years later.
Right.
And we do, or their parents are calling us looking for help, or what do they do?
Right.
Yeah, and we all know once this disease takes effect into the brain, this is the hardest thing to try to get out of.
It is.
So
It definitely is.
prevention, is our key, is our mantra. Prevention through education.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we talk about. But we bring everybody in with us to talk. I mean, we've created a platform where we've been able to have moms who have lost their children out there, and mostly moms. I hardly get any dads. I'm about one of the only real dads that goes out there and puts himself out there in the middle of this.
I think I've seen 3.
Yeah, the men just won't come out and speak on their kids that much. I mean, we have a few, but just not enough.
Right.
There's a stigma there for that too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Too.
Right. And it's just, exactly what Elisa's saying. The shame part of it. The father feels this is my son or this is my daughter, and how do I deal with that? And it's just, and it's a shameful thing.
Right.
But here's what we do is we break that shame in the family, and we tell them, don't be afraid of your child. Talk about your child.
Right.
You don't have to shout on top of the building, but don't be afraid to say, you know what, my child is suffering today, with a disease. And we're going to work through this.
Right. I'll sit with you. And there's a lot like what you're doing, and it's something I really believe in, is you're bringing community and the school together. I think there's such a gap there between community and school, where that should be community and school systems have to hold hands together. That there has to be that community action, holding hands with the school, so that there's just this wraparound program. There's wraparound, like wherever you go, you're able to get what you need.
Right.
Absolutely.
We truly believe in, another mantra that we use is it does take a village. We can't sweep it under the rug and expect somebody else to fix it.
Right.
Right.
And it doesn't go away on its own. I think that's one of the things, I kept hoping for with my own addiction. I was like, well, I'll get older and I'll grow out of it.
It's just a phase.
I'm like, I can't be like this forever, but it just kept
I'm shooting up, but it's just a phase.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. Well,
once it gets you, it's got you, and it will not let go.
And I don't.
And we feel like there's no hope for us when that happens. I'm going on 15 years clean myself as an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like,
yes.
We're just normal people. I think the strongest person is somebody in recovery at any point and level.
Absolutely.
Because they know the lowest point of their lives that they've gotten to.
Exactly.
And they've been able to rise out of that like a phoenix.
I think so too.
Rise out of that.
Absolutely.
And get their lives back and get families and have jobs and be an author, which I want to roll into that with Elisa here, because Elisa is an author and she is a mother and she's gone through this. So I'm going to let her go ahead and talk a little bit about herself here.
Right. Hi, Elisa.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I was Do we just want like a background, like a little synopsis?
Yeah, we'll start out that way. That's a good place to start.
I love it.
What? Not One More was February 12th?
Yes.
So I actually got sober March 29th of the same year. So I've been with Not One More pretty much as long as I've been sober.
Fantastic.
I was a heroin addict for 5 years. I don't have like some horrible traumatic thing. I have a twin sister, 2 brothers, great parents. I grew up in Newbury Park. When I drank and got high, it was fun. I liked having fun. I drank and smoked pot all through high school. I didn't go to high school most of the time because I wanted to use. And then, of course, after high school, it, the drugs progress. And I think that's something that I always tell the kids when we go speak is we've spoke at this point to thousands of people. We've met thousands of addicts. We've met thousands of people in recovery, thousands of parents. To this day, I have yet to meet someone that smoked pot regularly every day to get high who didn't progress to harder drugs. So it's that theory of, I tell the kids, prove me wrong, but I've never met someone that liked the head change that didn't progress to something else. And my addiction was ugly. I can't say that I had like this awful homeless type of thing because that's not what it was. I was a great manipulator. I was able to keep a job the entire time to pay for my drugs, to pay for my alcohol, until I wasn't. And 3 months before I got sober, I finally became homeless. I took myself to Skid Row because I thought that that's where drug addicts go. And that was they say like jails, institutions, death. And I think Skid Row should be considered some sort of an institution because that is probably a lot worse than jail.
Right.
I think a lot of people don't know that that even exists, or that really that's kind of the only fate that an addict who doesn't get help will go to is, homelessness to the point where you literally have nothing but the tent that you're living in. And all I had was what was in the back of my car. So, in my addiction, it was really ugly. I've been raped 3 times. I had cancer in my addiction. I literally, so many things could have been my bottom. I got pregnant and tried to overdose and commit suicide, and I killed my baby instead of myself. There are so many ugly, horrible things that I did. And, that's what part of this shame is like people don't get that you can't decide what your bottom is, and it can sound like it's enough, but it wasn't. It did nothing but fuel me to want to get high even more.
Exactly.
And I didn't get sober until I went to see some junkie dude I was dating got in trouble. They sent him to Prop 36. He had to go to rehab, and I went to visit him like thinking that like, oh, this is a place where a bunch of drug addicts are, so it'll be like easy access to drugs. And I was wrong. Most of the people there were sober. They didn't have drugs. But ironically enough, they looked good and they spoke well and they seemed happy. And it was one of those rehabs where they were chanting and macaroni art and they had painting time and it was like a adult summer camp. But when I left that place, I couldn't even bring myself to like start my car. Like I was hysterically crying, and I just knew that like I needed to be there as well, and that I was just as sick, if not more sick, than these people. I went to rehab, and I think I weighed 84 pounds. My head was shaved. I was wearing some guy's clothes that I don't even know. I was a mess, and I hadn't talked to my family in 3 years. And to say like I was ashamed is such an understatement of how awful I felt about myself. And at the point when I got sober, I definitely felt like all of the horrible things that I had been through, that I deserved that. And people forget that like, yes, in addiction we commit crimes that maybe like are punishable by law by all means, but we're not criminals and we're not a lost cause. And I'm an advocate for a lot of addicts probably do have some sort of a mental health problem that they don't know about, whether it's depression or anxiety or something that they can't even fully explain, and then the drug is helping them not feel the way that they don't like feeling. And I know for myself that 100% was true. And in my family we didn't talk about emotional problems. You know, it was very tough love. Like, if you're feeling some way, you get over it and you move forward. So if you
Right.
do have something real like depression, you know, and it's not being treated and it's getting swept under the rug, it needs to be addressed. And I think that that's something that we say at the schools all the time is like, you need to have that open communication with whether it's your parents or teachers or counselors or friends. Like, you need to be able to tell somebody if you're not feeling right or if you're thinking things you shouldn't be thinking. And you know, I'm the one that always tells these kids, if you see something happening, please tell on them, tell their parents, tell a counselor, tell somebody before it's too late and something bad happens or they do become addicted, because sometimes we're not, you know, brave enough to say anything. And I know if someone would have told my mom, like, hey, she really needs help, and my mom would have got me help,
Right.
you know, maybe it wouldn't have lasted as long as it did.
Right.
Um, so I went to a meeting in my first 60 days sober. I saw some lady speak. She had 28 years. She got up there and she said, I have my original sobriety date and I've never relapsed. And it was at that moment that I decided that I wanted to do the same thing. I'm like a little more than 7 years sober and I still have my original date. It does make it a little hard when people talk about relapse because I can't relate. So
Mhm.
that is like a interesting thing in my sobriety that I don't have experience with it. I sympathize with it absolutely, but I was just ready when I got sober. And, you know, I had all these things I wanted to do when I got clean. And ironically enough, I had so many people telling me that I couldn't do it. I dated a guy that told me, you know, he knew I was writing a book and he's like, this is such a joke. Like, you never went to school to be an author and like, you know, you'll never be successful and you should just focus on what you're good at, you know. And it was hurtful. And
Right.
a year later, I published my first book that I had been working on since I was like, I think I started when I was 15.
Wow.
It doesn't have anything to do with addiction, but it's like a self-help, like life book. And then that book actually got picked up by a publisher, and the publisher was like, how soon can you put out the next one? And I don't know why, but I told her 3 months.
Wow.
So yeah, like that was like the impulsive, you know, and I think I was 3 years sober at this point. So, um, she, you know, asked about me and she said, well, what are you going to make the next book about? And I had read, you know, I'm not only am I an author, but I'm a reader and I've read so many books about addiction and they end in death and they're, you know, Go Ask Alice was something that I read in high school and I don't know if it like intrigued me to do drugs more, or if it scared me, but she, you know, she died and it was tragic and it was terrible. So I wanted to write a book that was just as ugly, but had a different ending.
Mhm.
So I decided to write an autobiography about my life in addiction and, you know, where that's taken me. And I actually took some time, you know, in the back to write to the parents, to the addict who's still using, to the one that's sober. Um, and that book, ironically enough, like it blew up when it first came out. It
Uh-huh.
still luckily has 5 stars on Amazon.
Awesome.
But the book, the funnest part about that book was it was raw and it's honest. And, you know, they say when you write an autobiography that it's usually over exaggerated. And in my case, there were a lot of things that I under exaggerated because I wasn't, it was hard to get that stuff out, you
Right.
know, and really say the things that I wanted to say and be so vulnerable to let people in because it's very detailed. And the reason that I wanted it to be that way is I did want people to understand that, like, here was a nice, innocent girl from a good family. And like we tell people all the time, no one's immune to addiction, and you're not immune to the shit that will happen to you. You're
Right.
not immune from being beat up. You're not immune from being raped, from being stolen from. You're not immune to any of that. And when you're putting yourself in that situation of drug addiction, you're inviting all those things into your life.
Right.
So while it doesn't make it okay that it happens to you, you know, there are so many other things that come with deciding that this is what you want to be. So I was, you know, my hope was that people will read it and not not want to do that and not want to do these things. But the funnest part about it so far is there was a book that started here in California and it was signed by people with their sobriety dates.
Mhm.
And the last I heard, like a year ago, it's in Maine, and there's over like 30 people who have signed it now. And from what I know, most of them are still sober. So
That's
it was,
beautiful.
it's called, so the book is called Junkie,
Mhm.
ironically
Yeah.
enough. And my author name is Tommy Z, because with sobriety, I didn't put my actual name on it. But yeah, it's a really interesting read. People say it's like watching a car accident, so they finish it in like a day or two usually.
Mhm. Oh.
It's a lot of stuff really quick, but it's I'm really happy that it relates to the addict, and it got to people who can relate to the story, and like being in a meeting telling 30 people who can relate to you on this level. It actually gets sold in 15 countries. And for some reason, it's really popular in Russia. I'm not
That's
sure why,
amazing.
but it's cool that it can get out to be that. And today I'm lucky that I am sober. I love my sobriety. Pat gives me a lot of options to take my story and my life as far as I can. I have a life today that I never ever thought I would have. I have a nice house and a son and a great boyfriend, and it's fun when people ask me what's going on, and I don't really have anything to say. Now it's boring. So
Oh, boring is so nice.
Well, and that's,
I can't
yeah,
imagine that it's boring
Yes,
though.
but
It's just it looks a little less adventurous maybe, but you're living your life, the way that
yeah.
it was intended to live.
Mhm.
So there's nothing boring
the
about
Right.
that.
recovery road is never really boring, but
No,
Right.
nothing is boring in recovery. And I think that we're just all so lucky to be in recovery, to have had the lives that we lived, because it's almost like we get two lives, like
Right.
two
absolutely.
completely different aspects of life, like the darkest moments, which, I mean, I'm sorry, I learned so much about people, about myself, about
Sure.
relationships, about all the things I didn't want, which I think is really important to know, because I didn't know myself. So it's important to know what you don't want
Yeah.
when you're finding yourself. And then I came into this other life where I get to kind of create it and be empowered. And it's just two totally different aspects of life. And I feel honored to have known both.
My sponsor actually had a good analogy with that when I got sober, and it was so important to me because they tell you put yourself on your fourth step first, and that's like
Right.
a idea you can't even you have to forgive yourself before you can really start cleaning up. And she said, you have to envision the truth, which is you're not this person anymore. So it's even healthy enough for you to picture her exactly the way that she was. And, you can talk to her
Mm-hmm.
and tell her the things that you want to forgive her for, type of thing. And that, thank God she told me to do that, because it was really hard early in recovery to envision that. And sometimes I still think that today, when I hear voices in my head like, oh, this would be a lot more fun if you were high, because like that never goes away.
Never.
And I tell her like, you need to shut up.
Right.
I think she still follows me around every once in a while, but it was healthy to make that separation, like you're saying. It's into two completely different lives.
Right. And honestly, that's what it feels like. And the further I
Yeah.
get into recovery, the further that feels, that life feels. And I almost look back sometimes and I'm like, that couldn't have been me. Like
Right.
that wasn't me.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely makes you appreciate life at a different level,
Absolutely.
and that's not just ice cream and Starbucks. It's like life in general,
I mean,
like
Right.
Elisa says, the 3-year-old, they're,
yeah.
and our kids, and Starbucks does taste better,
Yeah.
and it
It
does.
does.
Right. But
It's,
it's appreciating like taking a walk in
but
the
we just
park.
appreciate that stuff, because then we could look back and say, you know what, 15 years ago, it wasn't like that. I could care less. A half
Right.
gallon of vodka was what I wanted. That was my Starbucks.
Right, and
Right.
it's the cool things like a $5 Starbucks is better than a $20 bag of heroin.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's definitely a huge
So,
improvement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So I love what y'all are doing. I love I'm looking at Amazon right now, the cover art
Oh,
of that. That's beautiful.
so that's
Amazing.
actually. Are you looking at the cover of my book?
Yes.
So that's actually my eye.
It is. Well, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Your eyes are so gorgeous.
There's a poem, like a blog post that is in the back of the book as well, and it was something that I wrote when I was like maybe 6 months sober,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about the difference of like the clarity in what you can see in life, and how if you look at the pictures physically of what you looked like before sobriety, you can see, you know, the droopiness and the pins and the bags beneath them. So the picture that I took was the first picture where I felt like I looked like I was alive in recovery. So it's
That's incredible.
crazy. But there's like a whole a story in itself behind the cover.
It's always in the eyes. It's always in the
It
eyes.
is.
You look at
Always.
I
anybody's
love
eyes
that.
in recovery, you will tell instantly that they
Instantly.
found
Yeah.
you, you know.
It is instant. I remember when my ex would lie to me, and I'm not judging him for this because obviously I've done it too. But I'm not high. I'm like, I can see it. I mean, you can
Like,
say
I'm looking at you right now. Stop.
Yes.
Don't lie
right.
to me.
I know.
And and we know those. I mean, same with my kid that way, it was the same way, he would deny it. And I go, you don't have to lie anymore about this. We're in
Right.
it.
It's
We're already
like
in
I
it.
get it.
You know?
You
Let's
don't have
take
to
that
lie to
away.
me.
Let's throw that part away and let's work on what you need to get done within yourself. And obviously, I can't fix him. We've learned that in our first his first three. Well, when we started Not One More 8 years ago, I was already dealing with him for 3 years as a heroin addict.
Well, Kyle and I were in rehab together. That's how Pat and I met. Believe it or not.
So I mean, actually, it is how we met, and it's just like, but we've watched him overdose many times. And at first I wouldn't think about a clean needle exchange for him, but I looked at it in a different way one day when I found a backpack full of dirty needles.
Right.
And I know what he did with those. He used them over and over and over because, I seen the infections.
When you wonder where they came from.
And
too.
they share it. So, and I hate to say it. I hate to say, that it was just, that's all part of the stigma too. Because when we first started this, even with Not One More, even with my own recovery, I still had a stigma about what I was thinking, what would be best for him.
Right.
And then even Narcan, when Narcan first came out publicly that people can get it, we, even as a group, we as Not One More were against that because we thought we were enabling addiction, the addict to keep on using.
I forgot about that.
And we did. We wouldn't endorse it because we didn't know enough about it.
Right. And I think there's other organizations that still hold that true,
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, we don't know what that person's going to do with that life, and honestly, that's not for us to judge. I've heard it said before and I love saying it, but our part in life, that's between like what I do with my life, that's between me and my higher power. What somebody else chooses to do with their life, that's between them and their higher power. And we got to kind of leave it at that. I'm going to do the best I can do for people, for myself.
Right. Yep.
And my best isn't always your best or what you think is the
Thank you.
best, but I'm going to live from my heart,
Absolutely.
We have to learn to meet people at their level.
Exactly. Meet people where they are, not where we want them to be.
Always.
For me to judge somebody else, that's going to, I'm being a hypocrite because I'm totally going out there speaking about that. And then now I want to, stigmatize myself and my own family. Right. I say, no, I can't do this. This isn't good. But yet I'm out there, telling somebody else what to do with their lives.
And, whenever I just try to go to judge somebody, I think first, well, when was the last time I did that?
Me too.
You know what I mean? Because I've done it all and then some, or I can relate in some way to whatever, anybody's situation. It's just.
Like when you catch yourself judging somebody for something you've done, and you're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that.
That we and sometimes that does happen often in sobriety. Though when people get sobriety,
absolutely.
you become, and I call it putting yourself on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And we watch that. We watch people become, the AA guru, or the NA guru, or whatever you want to be, say. It's just they think they know more than anybody because they have 3 years of sobriety.
Right.
Right.
On Tuesday, I go to a women's meeting, and it was funny because we were talking about how important the word perception is, and that they should be teaching that word in like elementary school, because it's perfectly okay for someone to feel exactly the way that they feel about you at that moment, and it's no reflection of you, and it's not
Reflection of
you know,
them.
and either you agree or you don't, but it's not okay for us to shove our perception down their throat and tell them that we're right.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and that it happens in real life and sobriety, and it's a concept that like everyone should just learn to be okay with, and that's not easy. That's not an easy thing to truly feel that way.
Right.
But it's such an easier life if you do.
It's easy to
Agreed.
judge someone
And
else, right?
It is.
You
we
know, one of
also,
the I use this. I always tell people, when you point a finger at somebody else, you have three pointing back at you.
right.
So
Yep.
figure out what those three fingers mean. You know,
And that's, I've heard that too, is like, think of the three things about yourself that you don't like that made you point the one finger.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's true as well.
yeah. There's you usually have a part in that one. You know,
Right.
and you know, so one of the things that not only do we deal with the sobriety part and recovery and all of this, but we also like I said, we coach up people to try to love the addict, hate the addiction. I get that. I get that you're angry. I get that you just got your house robbed by that person that you call your son or your daughter. But you look at it, I go, that is not your daughter or your son, right? And I
Right.
tell parents that. I go, think about that. That is not little Johnny or Susie in the way that they would have acted,
Right.
back before they got into that. And now, and I go, so it's their addiction that calls them out,
Right.
that calls them out to do that. I go, because they have to feed that addiction now.
It's a monster in itself. And the
Yeah.
desperation that I used to feel when I knew I wasn't going to have what I pretty much needed. I mean, at this point, it was like life or death. I mean, I
Right.
needed it. You didn't want to
Right.
see me without it. I didn't want to live without it. And that's just the sad truth of just how strong it was.
And that becomes your own job,
It was, yeah, the hardest
if
job
you
I've
look
ever
at
had.
it is because you woke up in the morning and your whole day was based on where you were going to get your dope from
Yep.
and how you were going to do that.
And how I
And
was
then
going to
you went to
get
bed,
something
and
to
then
either
that time,
sell or give or, or trade or,
That's your
you
whole
know,
identity.
it is,
it's a,
it is.
All
I
day.
will say I
Yeah.
can turn, 15 cents into $1 still to this day.
I love that.
I'm going to need you to do more of that in a different way.
I mean, there's not,
Yeah.
I always know, I was like, hey, if I can get high, I can feed my kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this day and
Right.
age, like I can get us up some Christmas presents or something.
Always.
Right.
Always.
If I manage to get high for, 20 years straight, I can,
I can do
Yeah,
anything.
and you survive without a real, job,
right.
in a sense that was your job, but I mean, without a 9 to 5 job where you punched a time clock, it was a different kind of time clock you punched, and that time
Right.
clock was your addiction.
Exactly. I mean, I
You're
was
trying to
probably more
beat that
loyal to
time
that job than any other.
clock. Right? It's amazing how resourceful you become
You
in
really
that.
do, and
And
those
we address all of that.
right.
When we address that to these kids, I go, so you get let's say I talked to one kid at the juvenile probation department. He was in there because he was smoking weed. I go, so how much? I go, do you have a job? Are you independently wealthy? And he says, no. I go, so how much dope do you smoke? How much weed do you smoke a day? And he goes, $10 worth. I go, well, that's bullshit. That's probably 20, but at least,
$10.
But
$10.
who buys $10 worth of smoke, And you do that every day. So he says, I look at his mother because at this juvenile probation thing, their parents come in there.
Mhm.
So we're dealing from 14 years old up to 18 years old in this. And their parents, sometimes this is the first awakening that their parents have on their kids' drug use.
Right.
So this kid, I go, so where do you think you're going to get that money? Mom, are you giving him $10 a day? She goes, no. She goes like, and she's like looking at me with her eyes open. I go, I'm opening your eyes today.
Right.
We're opening your ears and we're going to open your eyes.
Well, that's $70 a week. I mean,
I
I
told
know.
her,
My
Right?
God.
it was like $3,600 a year. I go, you're smoking a car, a used car, a year.
Toyota
And I go, and how
Camry.
many years have you been doing that? I go, so
Yep.
I tell them, I go, welcome to your addiction.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, this is, I go, because if you're doing that every day, now it's controlling your life.
Right.
Well,
And
that
you know, in 6 months, that $10 is going to be 20.
Right.
Right.
And you know it is. So,
Right.
Well, it
so,
has
so
to
that
be.
turns into like a $7,000 habit a year for
Right.
this kid alone that's in high school without an addiction, a heavy addiction use. Because most of these parents are still oblivious that their kids have the potential
Mhm.
of the
Right.
addiction, you know, and of being addicted, you know, with the disease, which, you know, some will, some won't, you know, some will walk
Right.
past this. But, you know, of the ones we meet, you know,
Well, if they're already on probation, that's a sign. And I tell them that as well. It's not, I don't think that's normal. And I think that was the eye opener for like me in high school, being in 9th, 10th grade. If I'm looking forward to smoking pot all day long and I can't wait to get to the head change, that's the addiction. I mean, this actual substance you're using is such a small part of your addiction.
Right.
So if you are that young and you're looking, you know, you need to come up with the money and you're figuring out a way to come up with $70 a week for a high school kid without a job. I'm sorry, but it's a little bit impressive, honestly.
It is.
Right.
And you're already hustling for your money, however it is that you're doing it at that age, and you're just simply getting through the day so that you can get high. Then you start risking getting high at school, getting in trouble. You're already addicted, in my opinion. At that point, you already have a problem that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
let's focus on the skill sets it took you to be that resourceful and turn that into something productive.
Right. I mean, you
Right.
could rule the world.
Well, and they really could. I mean,
I mean,
anybody
seriously.
who's ever been, you know, with substance use disorder is anybody who's ever been there. They're some of the most resourceful people out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
they know how to hustle. They, you know, parents are always worried. My kid's gonna die. My kid's gonna die. I go, the risk of dying is definitely elevated.
Mhm.
But for most of them, they're not going to die. They're just going to go out there and try to find their high, you
Right.
know, and you know,
And do anything.
to get
anything to get it.
I mean, when I think about like my habit at its worst point was $300 a day.
Yes.
A day.
Wow.
Isn't that insane? I did not work.
Yeah,
I wasn't working at the time.
A day.
A day.
Yeah.
$300 a day habit.
Yeah.
So many Honda Civics.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's
So many
like,
Honda Civics.
I could get like a 99 Honda Civic a day.
Honda Civic.
I should have opened up a used car lot.
Yeah, right.
That's your thing. That's what you should have done.
But you think about that weekly. That's like
You should take a picture of a parking lot that's empty. I go, I could have filled this parking lot up.
I could have filled this in a month.
Truth. Truth.
So, and that's the beautiful thing. We
Yeah.
can laugh about that today.
Absolutely. That's
You know?
that's our privilege.
You
We
have
get
to
laugh
find the
about it.
humor in it.
Right.
You do.
Really do.
Yeah.
In everything. And honestly, that's indicative of a happy life, you know? You can look
Yeah.
back at, you know, what you put yourself through.
Right.
And laugh about it and find joy in it and find purpose and meaning, because that's I think that's what life is about, finding purpose and
Right.
meaning in your life.
And then you turn around, and this is where we're able to help people, and you turn around and you try to give that back to somebody else.
Yes.
Exactly.
Not just within the
Absolutely.
community that you're already singing the choir to,
Yeah.
you know, which is AA or NA, you know,
Right.
but we do that all the time, and we give people hopes through that as well, and that's not a bad thing. But to go out there and tell your story to the people who don't know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
you know,
Right.
the people that just go, wow, you must be, you know, we tell kids, like I do this experiment at school, and I go, what do you think? And last night we did it at this high school. I go, what do you think a drug addict looks like today? And of course, nobody answers, you know, but I go, okay. I go, do you think it looks like, you know, a Skid Row person, or like a Lisa, you know, a bad person or something? I go, I want you to turn your head to the right. And I go, and now, you know, now turn your head to the left. I go, today, that's what a drug addict looks like.
Mhm.
That's what somebody looks like with substance use disorder.
Right.
And it starts right here with you guys. You know,
Yeah.
80% of heroin addicts started out with a prescription drug out of their own parents' medicine cabinet.
Right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That was, I
And-
mean, my mom, you know, she tells me the story of when she had a headache and she was given a Percocet for a headache.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was it. She was done after that.
Yeah.
So-
That's not far off from, you know, my story as well, you know.
Right.
The butt cancer.
We've seen
Oh, yeah.
what we're seeing today. So we see so many different aspects. It's not just street drugs we're dealing with anymore.
Right. No, it's a
The
lot more powerful.
industry. It's the industry that got involved with this because they seen a market in this.
Yeah.
So that's why we're dealing with the pharmaceuticals. The
Yes,
pharmaceutical
sir.
Yep.
companies, and we're watching this happen right under our noses.
I saw a
You know.
statistic the other day that 400,000 2 to 5-year-olds are prescribed Adderall.
Yes.
True.
Two-year-old,
My
Yeah.
2-year-olds.
6-year-old, they prescribed it back before I was educated.
Right.
I still didn't feel good about it,
Right.
but they
Right.
did. They put her on it, and we were sitting in Dairy Queen one day, and she said, "Mom, like she said, my heart hurts. Something's wrong." Like, and I felt her heart, and there was no way. I was like, it's about to come through her chest. She starts like shaking,
Uh-huh.
and that was it for me. I was like, no more, never again. Will I give you anything like that?
It's
So
insane.
our pharmaceutical companies duped us into thinking this
Right.
that we've changed into a quick fix society.
Mhm.
Yes.
So we want everything to be fixed right away. Instead of
Yep.
sending your kid to go play outside, which sometimes that's all the Adderall would replace that, and so these kids, you just need to get outside sometimes. And I'm not saying all cases. There's different cases, and I'm not against
Right.
prescription drugs used in the right way if they're used in the right way for a short period of time.
Of
But
course.
Right.
our society has made these prescription drugs a long-term use, which in turn we see what happens with that. And then when we go to pull those pharmaceutical drugs away from that person because we finally find out that it's not doing them any good, now we're dealing with somebody with an addiction issue,
Who's
and
going
they'll
to
go
turn
to
to
the
the
street.
streets because they
Yep,
can't get
and
it
they go to
anymore?
the street.
Well,
Exactly.
and the long-term effects of any of these pills that most of the parents aren't reading about, long-term effects of Adderall on an adolescent brain are through the roof.
Right.
Yeah.
They're horrific. They are. And so my daughter, my oldest daughter, has had a traumatic brain injury. She's had 2 brain surgeries, and she's currently, it's a long story. You guys will have to check out the other shows to hear it, but she's currently in temporary state care because of the way the law is set up. And so they were trying to convince me about the proven, I guess, case studies about the positive impacts of Adderall on traumatic brain injury cases. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, anyone that has any sort of an intellect at all, though whatever numbers that you're dishing out mean nothing to me because
Right.
I
Right.
know what long
Yeah.
term it's doing to her brain.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, the long-term effects of Adderall on the brain mirror meth.
Because it is, I mean, on the bottle it says amphetamine.
Amphetamine salts. Like it
Yes,
said on her
amphetamine.
prescription. I looked at we had to go to the doctor today and I was trying to get all the and on the prescription literally says amphetamine salts. And I'm thinking to myself, nothing about this is okay.
That's what I tell people because, once again, that's an educational thing. Know what you're putting in your body.
Right.
Just because a doctor prescribes it to you doesn't mean that it's going to be good for you on either a short-term or long-term basis. It depends on how you're taking it. If you're going to drink alcohol with it, I just had. We went to an opioid summit here 2 days ago, where the DEA put on here at the Ronald Reagan Library here in Simi Valley. And they had this mother come and speak with us, and this mother. What was her first name? Her last name is Savage. Anyways, she runs a group, a nonprofit group called 525, and those were the numbers of her son's hockey jerseys. They're from Pennsylvania. So these 2 boys, this mom, she was a nurse, and her sons didn't have addiction issues. They had drug use issues. And I'll get to the story here with that is that this mom lost both of her sons to a drug induced overdose.
Right.
So, but what happened was both these kids, it was graduation. One kid was graduating from high school. The other one was already his first year in college, both avid hockey players, the normal family, the so-called normal family. I don't think there's anybody normal out there. We can't define that, We like to think we're normal. But anyways, this mom found her kid. The one kid, she went down in the basement. The kid was supposed to be in school or go to his job or something like that. She went to his bedroom, and of course, being a nurse, as soon as she tried to wake him up, she realized that her son was no longer here. So she's panicking. So then she's calling out for her other son. and I guess he was in the basement with his buddies because they went to the same party the night before. And what happened was, uh, you know, his friends tried to wake him up. They couldn't wake him up, and they came up and yelled at the mom, "Something's wrong down here." So they went down there, and her other son passed away. Both these boys passed away on the same day, the same night. And both of them didn't party together, but they did something separate, But it was
Right.
it was an opioid pill mixed with alcohol, and that's how they died. It was a alcohol induced overdose with an opioid pill, a prescription drug
I
that
have chills.
somebody brought from their parents' medicine cabinet, and they were
Oh,
handing them out.
She
So
lost both of her
terrifying.
sons.
both of her sons on the same night died.
Mm.
And then I cannot even fathom. I mean, I've
Yeah,
nearly lost my daughter to suicide and knowing what that feels like. But then I'm just thinking, I had to come to that really harsh reality of something may happen to me. I still have to think about it. Something may happen to my daughter, but I know I have to stay in the game because my 14-year-old needs me. I don't
yeah.
know. But and then you've got to think like that's her mental health is seriously in danger at that point.
Right.
Right, right. And you as a parent, like one of you said earlier, is more than the statistics show.
Yeah.
The all the journals, all these medical journals
Yes.
can go out the window when
Right.
you're dealing with this on a personal level.
Absolutely.
It's just like raising a kid. I mean, my wife is an exception. She said that she read some of those Dr. Spock books and used them, but she's that way. She likes to read. So,
Yeah.
but most people will pick up these books and how to, especially with their first child, they're looking for direction on how, and probably as a woman, and I don't know this, but probably as a woman getting ready to have a baby, you're scared to death on what's going to come to you right now.
Right.
Yeah.
How do I do this? How do I change a diaper? How do I feed them? How do I?
I was reading a thing yesterday online about how postpartum depression right now is so high.
It is.
And the suicide addiction rate with that has rocketed in new moms because of social media. They're saying that it's easy to post the pictures of the baby and
But you're not allowed to post a picture that you're sad.
Right.
It's
Or when the baby
right.
won't stop crying and the thoughts that might run into your head because that baby won't stop crying.
And
Like you
because
talked about on the airplane, like
yes,
it's a thing. Nobody's talking about that enough. I
Mhm.
agree with you
well,
110%.
and because of that, nobody's calling or texting. They're not
Right.
actually checking on these women throughout the day because they saw a post on Monday which made them think they were fine. And I know, because I'm sober, I was a single mom for 18 months, and it was way harder than anything I've ever done in my life. And I would call my mom bawling, crying, telling her at 11:30 at night, I have to come over. I
Right.
can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
And I don't even want to look at him. I can't be near him.
Absolutely.
And it's a legitimate feeling. And, now these women can't go to counseling. They can't do anything because I guess CPS gets involved when you tell a therapist,
Right.
I
Yep.
hated my
They
kid
sure
for a
do.
day.
Right.
But it's true and it's okay. And for any mom to say, oh, I've loved them every moment they were alive. Like the first year that a child is alive, there are times where you literally just want to run away and never look back. It's hard. And people don't give enough attention to that. So they were saying, unfortunately, pharmaceutical is now behind this, and they're giving out as much Xanax and everything else that they can, and that's their solution to the postpartum depression, which
Right.
unfortunately will only give more addicts and that it's just dangerous to have in the house with a small baby and a mom who's sleep deprived and everything
Right.
else.
I mean, why would you give Xanax to a sleep deprived person?
Right.
That doesn't make any
That's
sense.
why I'm like, wake up, people. Think
Right.
about what's happening right before your
And
eyes.
Xanax doesn't
Right.
cure anything. It has this exact same
No,
chemical makeup
it
as
numbs
alcohol. So I don't know
everything.
why. It's alcohol in a pill. So I don't know why we don't just say that,
Here, have some alcohol. Just
How
do a
about an
shot.
alcohol pill? Here, snort this
Aliza made a
alcohol.
point. Aliza made a point. Everything's social media now. Everything's
Mhm.
faceless. You go to a
Right.
doctor. How long do you spend in a doctor's office once you do get into the doctor's office? Besides the hour wait in the waiting room, waiting for them to see you. But
Right.
it's less than 10 minutes.
And they can prescribe you Xanax. All you have to say to that doctor, because I went and said I had postpartum depression. Now, luckily, my doctor is fantastic, and she knows about my addiction and she suggested therapy. She didn't go to pills and she wanted to hear about it. But I've heard from other moms that they go in and they say, well, I can't sleep, and now I'm having suicidal thoughts or angry thoughts. And the first thing they do is write them a prescription. They don't even hear them out, and like, okay, see you in 3 months.
Right.
It's awful. That's awful.
with
I mean, what could
refills.
happen in
With
3
refills, yeah.
months? You know what I mean? Is and
Yeah.
this subject is really near and dear to my heart because I had
Right.
postpartum depression, which moved into postpartum psychosis because I was self-medicating with methamphetamines, because I could be up. I
Yeah.
was so sleep deprived. My son had colic. He was sleeping like 3 hours a night,
Uh,
and not straight. I was lucky to get 45 minutes of sleep, at a time. I really felt like I couldn't reach out to anybody. It was a horrible situation. We were in recovery. Um, my husband at the time relapsed. I went right back, right after him. And I had really crazy feelings of like jealousy. I was jealous of my husband for relapsing,
Mhm.
I was like, well, how dare you, if you're going to
Right.
do it,
I'm
and
doing
I'm
it
just,
too.
I was like,
Yeah,
fuck
yeah,
you,
yeah,
and
That's
it
how
was
much
just,
better
it,
I
it
could do
was
it.
yeah. I could
That's
do
how
it
much
better
better.
than you.
right. I'm going to clean this whole house in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And right, I dug up my backyard one time and like, it was like, and I did it all with a pickaxe, not with a rototiller.
Wow.
I
Holy
love,
shit, what was
yes,
going on? It was
yes.
just like, I mean, it isn't that I'm just an alcoholic, but sometimes the other substances came into play
Well,
on
of
that.
course,
But,
yes.
and it was just like, wow, I dug that whole yard up and I'm just like, yeah, give me more, let's paint the house.
Right.
What else can I do?
It's still daylight, and I can do that into the night too. I have flashlights, so
Right, exactly.
you know.
I have like 1,000 headlamps. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
right?
Calling friends to come over. Come
Yeah.
do this with me.
I'm sorry, I don't have time to mow my yard, but I'm gonna vacuum it.
Exactly,
Oh my
exactly.
gosh.
And then like I would clean the whole house, and like 2 days later, it'd be like, "Did you just clean?"
Disgusting. Yeah. What
Like,
Yeah.
happened?
don't judge me.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
so throughout this whole thing, there's many issues that this is
Mhm.
all arriving on. It isn't just
right.
adolescents getting into drug use,
It's
but
so
it's
far
also the
reaching.
adult getting into it.
Right.
It's what we do to self-medicate. It's what our society has stigmatized us to think.
Mhm.
It's what the doctors have been told.
Right.
I don't blame the doctors 100% for this epidemic going on. I think it was the pharmaceutical companies that educated them
Right.
Hmm.
to sell us what we got into.
Yep. We
And
And
preach
yeah,
whether
that.
but
We preach that all
also
the time.
right. And when doctors get trained, they're basically like pharmacists. They're okay. What pill do you just prescribe for these ailments? They're not learning things like
No.
nutrition or holistic health.
No.
The benefits of meditation, exercise. They're learning very little of that.
right,
They're learning all. Basically like a pharmacist, like a
right,
Yeah.
glorified pharmacist. Like you come to me with these symptoms, this is what I'm going to prescribe you. That's their
right,
only. I mean, I've never gone to a doctor and it's been like, well, actually I did go to one and this one changed my life, but I went to him and I was like, look, I can't even do this anymore. My life is terrible. I gave him like all the whole spiel of my life, and my husband's cheating on me. I'm not working right now. I have no friends, I'm not getting out much. And he's like, and you want a pill to fix that.
right,
A
And
magic
totally, like,
pill.
I was so pissed at him. And I went home and I was like, I didn't get anything for it. And, and I was like, yeah, fix my life, show him.
right.
I'm going to
Yeah,
get a good life,
right.
jerk.
Yeah, and that's usually what we see out there is people do. Sometimes they relapse back into their addictions
Right,
because they want to show somebody. They're trying to prove a point.
right.
You know.
Yeah,
And by doing that, they hurt themselves rather than try to work on themselves.
It's generic, I think, like what you were saying too, because it is almost more like a pharmacist where they're saying, okay, well, if they say they have depression, loneliness, blah, 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 this will work. But that doctor's not saying, okay, but what else do you really have?
Yeah.
What
right,
else is going along with that? Because if you're already having suicidal thoughts, it says do not prescribe Xanax.
Yes.
right.
You can't be
It's
giving
just
them
about every
Xanax
one
is
of
a
these
depressant.
That is
just
one
about
of the
every one of
symptoms
these
of
mental
that,
health
though. Yeah.
medications, that is a
some
side
of them
effect.
some of them will push you to do it or to to do the worst drugs or anything else like that. So
Absolutely. I
you
mean, I
have to
went to one
ultimately
doctor as a young
take it
woman.
too.
I'm sorry. Sorry
Go
to
ahead.
talk. Oh, I went to one doctor as a young woman and I was basically a guinea pig, It was like every 3 months my meds were changed and, I'm trying to like get happy. She did give me some good books to read and everything. But at the end of the day, um, nothing ever changed. And actually it fed me into a larger addiction because I had to have this pill I had to have something to wake up. I had something to go to bed. I had something to get through the day with, on top of like me drinking all the time.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
drinking with the pills is lethal.
Right.
Exactly. So, I
And,
mean,
and that, I
it's
think
just no
that's where we
wonder.
just live on the edge. We
Yeah.
just live
Yeah.
on that razor's edge,
Right.
and we just wonder which either we're going to fall to either side or just get split right in the middle. And
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
none of it is good. None of it is
None of
good when
it's
we start
good.
doing it that way.
Well,
No.
it's like you said too with holistic. I had like PTSD and anti-anxiety medication when I got sober, and they weren't narcotic, and they helped a little bit. But I finally got to the point where I was like, I don't like the way I feel. Even in
Right.
sobriety, I don't like this. And my doctor went holistic, and I've been completely on holistic treatment for almost 2 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't needed a pill for anything. And I now have a brain disorder from addiction,
Uh-huh.
that was being treated as well with medication, and it's literally all holistic, all CBD stuff, and I don't need any of that.
Right. Right.
It's everything
Yeah.
we need comes from the earth. God, like we
Right.
everything that's been like
Right.
like engineered that way was created by man. Like
Yes.
and I want us to get back to that so much. That is such a passion of mine is we have to undo what has been done. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
for you to say that, for you to say 2 years holistic treatment, and I don't need a pill. I don't want a pill. You
No.
mentioned CBD. That is, there's so much science behind it. Not just science, but like it's I can't even find my words because
Yeah.
it just makes sense once that light bulb goes off for you. And that's what
Mhm.
I hope it does for our listeners is that we just keep pushing this. And one day you wake up and you look around and the world looks a whole lot different.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
It
It
does.
does.
And I don't want you to go as far as I have and like go into conspiracy theories and stuff.
No, do it.
Or do it. Maybe I do want you to do it.
I want
But
you to do
it's
it.
just
We're on
that
the radio.
education and having these living, breathing testimonies that tell you, I've been on this treatment or I've done things
Right.
naturally for 2 years. I'm living my best life.
Yep.
I can't even think about the days where I depended on drugs or a pill
Mm-hmm.
to make me feel better.
Because I can really
Right.
relate to you. I went through the same thing. I got clean in a treatment center, so I was prescribed things through the treatment center. And it the same thing. It worked for a minute. And then I was just like, God, I'm still a slave. I can't leave the house without it. If I forget it, I feel like crap. I'm it was just still a mess. And one day I went to my friend's house and she did essential oils and I had a headache and she put peppermint on my head and the headache went away. I was like, oh. And then I asked her
Wow.
about depression and she said, here, and anxiety. And she gave me some lemon oil and some lavender. And I went
Wow.
home with those two things. And I mean, I was hooked. I completely cleaned out the medicine cabinet. And this is kind of funny. Ironically, my ex-husband, he threw away my medicine like a week later. He's like, "You're acting crazy." And so he threw away my medicine.
Thank you very much.
And it was the best thing that ever
Right.
happened because I was like, oh, okay, well, I didn't want to take it and I was kind of scared to stop. So, I don't feel so bad.
You're acting crazy because you're acting normal.
Yeah.
You're
Like,
crazy.
it was so
Well,
funny.
you know what? Sometimes people are just so used to you being the way you are, especially
Exactly.
within your demons on your head,
Right.
that people think that's normal. And when you start becoming stabilized people go, what the hell is wrong with you? You know,
Right.
Or
and you know, and that's in the AA book. I mean, we start, you
Yep.
know, in the chapter to the parent or to the wives and,
Yep.
you know, things like that is we start wanting to take back our lives. And in that, you know, our spouses, our boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever it may be, we're so used to taking care of us
right.
Right.
that they also become dependent on that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Yep.
when they see that you are starting to stand up on your own feet and they're no longer having to take care of you and you're starting to take, okay, I want to, what am I paying here? What bills? You know, I want to get back into life, you know,
Right.
and you're starting to take control of your life. And you're right. People think that you're acting crazy. What's wrong with you? You know,
Right.
they're so used to you being laid out on the couch that, you know, um, they're,
Right.
you know, and they just, life went around me,
Exactly. I
you know,
had
and
Or in
energy
his
and I was
case, it
happy.
was
Yeah.
probably that you were feeding each other's addictions. So now
Right.
yes,
you weren't wanting to do that anymore. And he didn't want to
Exactly.
sit alone in it because then he's got to look at himself in the mirror.
Right. So it's easier to say I'm crazy. I was
yeah,
crazy, and this is the reason.
yeah,
It's these pills that are making you crazy that have been taken for like 2 years.
yeah,
Right.
I don't think they're
It
really
didn't
making
just
me crazy.
it didn't just happen. It would have already
No.
happened.
But I mean, that was a mess of a relationship, and it's,
but that's when we wake up, and then that's how we start pointing. Once again, we'll point that finger and we said, no,
right.
you're crazy,
Right.
you know, you should be coming along with me, you know,
Right.
and that's the
Exactly.
hardest thing. I mean, when I got sober was my wife seeing me make a change. You know, I've never been arrested either. I got that boring life too. You know, never been chased by the cops in that way, and you
Right.
know, never DUIs, never lost my job, never, you know, all this stuff. And I go, because I was functioning,
Yeah.
but I was out of control. And towards my end, I was out of control to the point of, you know, that's when the depression started hitting. That's when, you know, my life just, you know, I was now a shell of a human.
A-
You know, it
Absolutely.
consumed me from the inside out, and I still had my body on the outside, but what was in the inside was mush. You know, and I was just, you know, and I didn't like it. I didn't
Right.
like where I was at. You know,
No.
and then I had a tribe surround me. You know, and at that time, you know, whether it was a family member or friends and stuff, they surrounded me and stuck by me,
Mm.
and they gave me that support. And
Right.
then you know, I hated myself for the first 3 months of my sobriety, let alone a year. But you know, that first 3 months was horrible.
Right.
And I just, you know, contemplated life. I contemplated how easy it was just to walk into the liquor store versus working on myself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
You know,
it's a big undertaking.
it is.
You have to change literally everything. I had to change every thought in my head. I had
Yep.
to change every action. I had to change all my behaviors,
Yep.
because they were all these learned. I had, trained myself to react in these specific ways. When things
Right.
got hard, I reached for something outside of myself to make it better. And
Right.
I had to train myself to do something differently. And that's exactly what epigenetics even teaches us,
Does
and
right.
and that's really what recovery is. It's
Yes.
choosing every single solitary day until it becomes a habit. Choose differently, choose differently. And then you still have to be so vigilant.
Yes, that I was going to say that
Well,
too, but that day that you wake up and and you realize that you have made yourself believe every lie you've ever told everyone.
Right.
You know,
oh my
like
God.
And told
you
Yeah.
yourself.
and then you start to unzip that and it's like
Right.
this
Yeah.
ugly, like how ugly I really am in here
Yes.
that I've covered up my light and what's beautiful about me and peeling those ugly layers
Mhm.
off and it's hard
Yep.
work, but
The
it's so
onion.
freeing
Yes.
too at the
Yeah.
same time. But
Right.
staying vigilant. There are days when I wake up and I'll get halfway through the day noticing that I've made some of the same patterns that like I'm
Right.
repeating those old behaviors and I didn't even like realize it until halfway through the day and I'm like, "Oh my god," like, but I give myself grace in that and I'm like, "Hey, this isn't who you are.
Right.
Remember who you are."
Right. That's absolutely right. I always, you know, I tell even my team, I call my board my team. I go, nobody's above anybody else. I try to keep us all on the same level.
Right.
Right.
You know, we're all team members here. And I always tell them, remember your why, you
Yeah.
know, why you're here to do what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that keeps the drama out, you know, and it's just like, and that goes the same with our lives, you know. What I project to my, you know, with not one more is also recovery too. You
Right.
know, how, you know, let's not make this, you know, let's not point fingers. If we have an issue, let's talk about it. Let's, you know, let's not let things fester. Let's, and I think it's, we're a passionate team, I'm going to say,
Well,
and
then
but
you're our people for sure.
but that's what it is. But that's what we do. We get it hammered out so we can go out in public and do what we do.
Right.
With not one more. And it's beautiful to see because, I mean, if you look at our logo, the heart is our main thing. We're coming from the heart. It's love, the heart. It's learning compassion. That heart means so much to us. And when we, first came up with that logo, one of our, former board members, she came up with that, and it was just like, wow, it meant so much just to have that heart on there, and because it means so much. And when we give people in recovery or anybody, our bracelets that say not one more, I go read those words and then read them again.
Right.
And because we want you to live, we love you. And that's what we tell people. We're here because we love you. You know what it's like to go into a high school or junior high school and tell a bunch of, smart ass kids that we love them,
I
But we
do.
put
I
it-
do that to my smart ass 14-year-old every single day.
right?
Yes.
She's the biggest smart ass I know, but I don't care. I just cover her and kill her with kindness, even though she's
Yes,
like, Mom,
exactly.
stop. Get off
And
of
when you
me.
go to a high school, I mean, Lisa knows this as well as I do. You get these kids that just look at you like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Well, you know
Right.
what's missing in their lives too.
Yeah, they
Exactly.
need that. They're not getting that. That's why they're looking at you. That's the sad thing
Yeah.
is that we we made our kids, along with social media and all those outside influences, we have desensitized our kids too.
Yes.
I don't know, when it happened, I can't quite put my finger on it, but I noticed the same patterns in raising my kids in the beginning, just like my parents. The
Right.
screaming and the yelling and the just, the burnout and it was just repeating day after day over and over in this routine. And you can ask me, my kids will tell you now, like, I remember one time they knocked over a wine bottle or something, and you would have thought that they had shot someone.
Yeah.
I'm like, what in the fuck did you do that for?
Right.
Like, talking to my kids like that, like over a
Right.
wine bottle?
Right.
Stop
Right.
it.
Right.
And now, like, like Kelsey, my youngest, tells me all the time, like, she'll do something. She's like, you would have screamed at me for that. And I was like, and I didn't even feel that. Like, that isn't something that is a part of who I am anymore. But we
Right.
don't give our kids that place, that space to be who they are, to express their individuality. The schools are so pressuring them to do so well academically. We feel like
Oh, yeah.
we have to pressure them just to match to be a good parent. We have to put that pressure on them too. So we're missing that whole part of growing these beautiful, blossoming, young adults that are going to
Right.
pave the way for our future and
Exactly.
That's
then their
exactly-
future. And so for you to go in those schools and say, I love you. Look at a kid you don't like, I love you. I want to know I love you and your life matters to me and it is so important. This message that I'm bringing to you and just being so passionate and fervent about it. They need it. They've got to
Right.
have it.
And you see that in their eyes because when you say that, some of these kids tear up.
Right.
I would
because
lose it.
there's you watch them and they're because I'm an eye contact person. So when I do an assembly, if you're going to be a smart ass, we're going to at least Lisa's my most
I will stare into your soul.
perceived person
Right.
in there because here's this this cute girl comes in there. They think that they're just going to push her over and be this and that. And she'll stop an assembly as well as I would and call people out.
I did it yesterday, honestly. And that's the thing that Pat and I do that I feel like, in a way, like, I totally understand what you're saying as well. It's like there's a lot of pressure on them, but there's zero accountability the way that
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we've had the maddest I've ever gotten at an assembly was like a middle school, and there had to be like maybe 500 or 600 kids. And Pat was talking about his son, and he said, well, and they were laughing, and they were just awful. They were awful. And they were like literally
Little
laughing.
shits.
Yeah. And Pat said, well, if you guys think this is so funny, who in here would go shoot up right now? And someone said, I would. And Pat was in the middle of talking, and I stood up and I went to the section and I said, who said that? And they looked at me like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. And I said, no, I want to know who the fuck said that. If you're going to say that it's funny and you're going to sit here and laugh at him while he's talking about his son shooting up, I want to know who the fuck thinks it's so funny.
Right.
And I'm thinking like the principal's going to throw my ass out next.
Right.
And
Cussing at his kids.
this one kid told on the girl. He turned around and he said, she's the one who said that. And I looked at her, I said, why did you say that? Would you really leave here and you'd go shoot up because you think it's so funny that you would leave here and you'd go shoot up? And I mean, short of like stopping breathing altogether, like she just looked like she was going to cry. And you know what? Maybe if someone would have done that shit to me,
Right.
I wouldn't have been so arrogant to a point. And we had girls yesterday at the high school that Pat said, he said, who in here has been in trouble with the police or like gone to jail? And these two girls started laughing. And so when I got up to speak, I told them, I picked them out and I said, I think it's ridiculous that you would sit here and laugh about going to jail. And so I went on to tell them what jail was like. And a couple of them were just completely pale, because they don't understand, like,
Right. They don't get it.
You don't get, and to be honest, like Pat said, I didn't go to jail, but my boyfriend, he's sober as well, was cleaning up his past, and he had a charge from 2016, and he had to go to jail this last year for 3 months. And what it did to me and my soon to be 3-year-old, who went to the front door every morning asking, where's daddy, and seeing what they do to them. They don't have a toothbrush. They don't have soap. If you don't have money, someone giving you money from the outside, you don't get basic human essentials to live. And the fact that these kids, and you get treated like property, you get treated like a fucking number. They don't know that he's a great dad and he has a great job and he supports us. And this is something from 3 years ago. They don't know any of it, and they don't care. They treat him like every other criminal. So for these kids to laugh at stuff like this, I mean, I get like sweaty. I get so mad.
Right.
I'm like, because if you're gonna sit here and laugh at us when we're trying to tell you, like, this is not who you want to be, this is not what you want to do, if you find humor in that, like, God, you're going down a dangerous path.
Right. And it's so true. You're right about that accountability piece. I have to call my 14-year-old out on her bullshit all the time. But they're training themselves, like, to see who can top the next one. And their words are vicious and cruel, and
oh my gosh,
it's horrific.
And this is the problem that we see with parents today. We're seeing that the parents. Sorry about that. We see that the parents are becoming their kids' best friends. Yeah. This is my BFF. I go, fuck that. And I go, I even told my kids that. I go, I'm not your best friend. I don't want to be your best friend. You're going to find those in school for yourself. I'll be your friend as a father, as a family. But I don't want to be, and this is where, when people call us up, they'll say, we ask them what's going on. Why is your kid using? What's their mannerism? Blah, blah, blah. Well, we go out to the mall, we dress together, we go out partying together. Right. It's parents partying with their kids.
Well, and that's what's happening too.
And posting it on social media.
Yes.
Well, that's parents, the kids will do bad shit, and then they call us and tell us, like, I don't know why this is happening. But then you have this parent that's sitting in front of us who's asked for help, that is making every excuse for their kid. And they're like, well, that's not really, well, if you're not going to make them accountable at all, hand them the drugs, go buy them for them. Right. Because if you're going to sit there and make excuses for your kid's bad behavior, you're telling them it's okay, and you're enabling.
And exactly. A lot of parents say, I don't want to make them mad. Yeah. Just like you were saying, you talk to your 14-year-old, of course they're going to get mad.
They're supposed to.
That's your job, And one day, and I tell my sons even that, I got a 22-year-old as well, and he's college, and he coaches football at the local high school, and he's college bound, and doing all this stuff, and and then I have another son that has a disease of addiction, and and that's what he deals with. But we're all the same family. Yeah. But the parents are afraid to make their kid mad.
Like, when did that happen? Right?
I know. My parents never held back.
No.
And it's just like, boy, when we got in trouble at home when we were younger, we knew we got in trouble because we had the wrath of your parents. And if you came home, the message was already at your parents' house when you came home from screwing off on the street somewhere, and nothing bad, because you were supposed to have respect for your elders.
Exactly. And the whole neighborhood would tell on you.
Yeah, the whole neighborhood. So even in my neighborhood, we lived in a cul-de-sac. So the neighbors had permission to take a switch to us or chase us home or do whatever, not beat our asses, but definitely discipline.
Lightly,
and then
light
by
beatings.
the time we got home, by the time we got home, we couldn't even open our mouths up before we got it. You know,
Right.
you did what? You know,
Well, it's funny to get on this topic too, because like my dad's like a straight redneck. In a good, I mean, obviously we lived in $1 million house, but like we're like the dirt bikes are on the front lawn, and we were like he encouraged us to be like fun street kids. But man, if you crossed him, like you were gonna get in trouble. And my mom's like a Jewish mother from Israel, so oh man, if you were gonna feel that guilt and that wrath, and so ironically, that's what I've become as a mother too. And I'll tell you, my son tried to run in the street the other day. And I grabbed him by the arm and I stood him there and I said, "You don't do that. And you listen to mommy." And I'm yelling at him. And this woman walks by me and she's like, "You see how she's treating her son?" And then you wonder why people are suicidal and have to be on Xanax and everybody's judging everybody.
Right.
It's like, you know what?
For
If I'm
1 second of somebody's life, like that woman has never been aggravated at a child.
Right.
Like can't possibly relate.
Get hit by a car.
Right.
Like I want him to be scared of me.
Right.
I want him to be.
I need him to listen.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes that I guess what we're now considering shock value when it shouldn't be that, but that's what it is,
Fear should be a part of our psyche anyways. It should be part of life. I mean,
I agree.
just like they say, as if to put your hand in a hot fire, in recovery, we keep on testing that out. We should know that fire is hot. We should never leave that stove off in a sense that we don't know that foot stove actually has a fire to it. Right. There's actually pain associated with touching that stove.
And that's what my mom would always tell me, saying that reminds me, she would say, "If you're afraid of me telling you not to do this, you should be even more afraid of what's going to happen if you do. Because I'm protecting you from not doing this because it's dangerous to you. Right. So if you're afraid of me getting you in trouble, let me tell you, if you actually do it, the consequences are far beyond what I can bring you. Right. And we have to tell our kids that, but then we're scared of the judgment. And so far as someone, can record you with their phone now and put you on the internet and say, "Look at this shitty, tattooed, awful mom." And I worry about people doing that to me, because they're so quick to judge you, and it's just none of their business. It's none of their business.
Not at all.
It's not.
And the way that we're parented, I think that the children come through us. You know what I mean? They come through us. Like they're not ours, right? They belong to, we're just supposed to teach them some lessons, get them to fucking act right in public a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I'm not here to create this human. This human is going to be who they're supposed to be, regardless of me.
It's going to have
you're
going to have that slight influence.
I'm just planting seeds. All I can do is plant some seeds. Whoever this person is going to be, if he's an asshole, don't look at me, okay?
That's not
I did my part.
That kid, that's not my kid.
No. But I'm just saying, these children that come through us, and we don't need to be judging.
No.
Anybody at all for any reason.
An adolescent only knows what they know by the person that teaches them.
Right.
So if a parent doesn't teach them, I always tell parents, I go, don't worry about it. That $1,000 smartphone you gave your kid, he'll learn everything he needs to learn in his world today, including, and it is a scary thought because, I didn't have that smartphone privilege when I was a kid. It was, but today we're giving these kids that. I go, they're buying drugs on the internet sitting in the class.
Right.
Right.
They're watching porn in the classroom. They're texting each other. They're filming each other. They're bullying each other. And there's
making each other commit suicide.
They are. They
encouraging each other to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that all the time. There's a father that speaks out here. His son was bullied in a parking lot to the point of his son has a brain injury now because he was beat up in a parking lot for the video. Not one person went to help his kid, to help the kid. Everybody had their phones out filming it versus going out there and trying to protect this kid.
There was a kid here locally that, I work at a hair salon, so some of our receptionists are quite young and they're in high school. And I had overheard one of them talking, and a boy here, I believe he was in 10th grade, committed suicide recently.
Yes.
And she told me that he was on Instagram Live and all of these people were telling him to do it. And Not one of them ended up being questioned by police. Nobody got in trouble for saying what they said because there was hundreds of people. And I don't know if he was, being on the live to reach out for help. I'm not sure what the motivation was,
Right.
but when it came down to it, she was one of the people that told me that 80% of those comments were do it and suggesting ways for him to do it, and then 20% saying please get help. And I asked her, I said, and not one of you fucking called the police or his parents or showed up there or did anything to stop this from happening.
You know what? I seen that at a funeral one time. I went to a 15-year-old's funeral that overdosed. No, and the church was full of like 250 kids.
Yeah.
And somebody was speaking up there. Out of you 250 kids, not one of you could speak up to save my kid's life.
No.
They laid this guilt trip on these kids, and it was real because nobody wanted to do anything about it. They let it go on. They didn't want to rat them out. We always tell the kids when we go to the high school, you're not ratting it. You see somebody in trouble, please say something.
Saving somebody's life. And like, as a mom, I hope to God someone would show up at my front door and say, hey, you have a chance to stop this.
Right.
I'd do anything, if my kid was hurting, for someone to tell me.
Yes.
Every mother deserves that, especially if it's even one person who knows. They should say, if they don't want to tell the parents, tell the school, tell the teacher, tell anybody.
Anybody. Yes.
Or at least address it. We may not be able to stop it, but we might be able to address it in a different angle, that isn't dealing with somebody that's now homeless on the street and stealing from you and doing all this stuff,
Well, we tell them that at the high schools too. It's often you'll see something bad happening. Maybe it's someone who's starting to experiment with drugs and alcohol, or someone that you hear has something wrong at home. You'll see something going wrong much before you get the notification that they've committed suicide. And I can guarantee, and I tell them, when you feel that feeling in your stomach, like probably I should say something, maybe this is the time. Don't hesitate and say something
absolutely.
now. Don't wait until it's too late. If you see something that's making you feel like something is wrong, tell somebody. Your kids, you deserve the help. Say something before you can't.
And I'd rather that kid be mad at his friend than to be at the funeral saying what a great kid he was. And a parent burying their kid at 15, 16, 17 years old because they committed suicide. And that's we deal. I swear we deal with all different aspects of this. This isn't just substance abuse or use. It's the mental health issues. When we first started, we thought we were just dealing with drugs.
It was just
You can't deal with one without the other. They walk together. That's why we do this show, and that's why one of us, because you're speaking right now, and I'm doing everything I can do not to cry, because the suicide and mental health, that is more my platform, and recovery is more Chrissy's. But the more that we do this together, it's so blended, and that's
it's one and the same.
It is, and if we just keep putting those temporary fixes and those Band-Aids, symptomatically treating everything, because I know it's an overwhelming epidemic, and we don't know what to do. But it starts with these things that may seem so small.
And just like y'all said with like the Narcan, we're all evolving in what to do. We're all learning. You know what I mean? Y'all evolved from that opinion, and it's just like us. Where our opinions constantly evolve, and they should.
I'm open to you changing my mind. Please, please show me a better way.
I want to know.
Open to that.
Yes,
that's what we have to do as a society now. We have to reconnect to the human side of what we've lost.
Yes, amen, again and again.
Yeah.
Communicate.
And we're so used to, and I tell people, you want to do a social experiment, go to a mall and watch what these young kids are doing out there. I go, a group of them are texting each other, taking selfies, and then sending it to each other, but not one of them ever look up.
Look at each other in their eyes, like who
they don't talk to each other.
They
text each other walking next to each other. So we've trained. We have an epidemic, a social media epidemic going on out there right now that's creating a different kind of mental illness because we don't know how to communicate as a human anymore.
My good.
I think that's one of my favorite things about Not One More is like we go speak, and you never know what you're going to get. Like sometimes someone will come up and talk to you that has something to do with addiction, or because we talk about a certain side of our story, they'll come up and talk to us about something going on with their life with suicide or medications or whatever. And, you know, just human contact is like the initial start of trying to get help, you know? So if all we're doing is simply giving the people who just want someone to talk to, maybe just someone to talk to for 5 minutes. You know, that's like the biggest part of Not One More. We literally hear so many different things, depending on what we hear different things at probation and the high school. There's so many different stories that we get to hear and experience, and we always, you know, invite like, hey, keep us in contact, you know. Let us know how you're doing, and we do care, and that's why we tell them that we love them, because we do, and we will respond, and we do want to listen. And it's like the fact that an average human can go out and have 0 people to physically interact with during the day, and that's the norm now. That it's awful. It's completely awful.
So terrible. So much we need to do.
And we let people know that they're not alone in this. You know, bottom line, you're not alone in this. Whether you're dealing with somebody, you're a parent, an addict, or whatever you're dealing with, you're not alone. And we want to make sure that is perceived out there, where, you know, and we get that. We get contact from people that are in full blown addiction, and they're out there blown out, but they'll contact us, you know, either privately or on our, you know, on our Facebook Messenger or something like that. And they just want to talk, you know, can you help me, or can you listen to me, you know? And that's what they want, and it's helped them get to the next level. You know, we may not be able to.
That's
it. That's what it is. You know, and we may not be able to get them into a rehab or anything else, because that's harder than crap right now to try to get everybody in, because so many people want help.
So many.
But
with a good facility.
You're right.
Right. Somebody who's not just out for the $30,000.
Oh my God. And that's the worst thing. I mean, you watch these parents selling their houses.
Oh,
they
I
go
know.
into max out their credit card, sell their cars, do whatever. They go into poverty. And this is a sign of love, in my opinion, is watching a parent give up everything to save their kid's life.
Right.
I've done it 2 times. I'm sitting in my second bankruptcy because I have done everything I can. But there's a point in that you have to sit and say, okay, I can't, something has to change.
Right.
We have to change. And that's
So
where
much.
we would encourage parents, you know, people that are dealing with the substance use disorder within the family, to get their own recovery.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It has to be the family. It has to be,
Absolutely. I had to check myself. Where did I need to fix some things? What did I need to heal? I've done tremendous work in myself when I was constantly blaming her, you know, her brain disorder and then her mental health disorder and whatever would come my way from her. And it wasn't until I looked in the mirror and said, you've got some shit to change.
Yes.
That things started to change for me. Am I financially better? Nope.
Nope.
But sure, I'm not.
That's the misperception of recovery.
But I don't worry about that anymore. I worry about what is important, because what happens will happen with that. But I have to know that I did everything I could to save my family, all of us as a whole.
And mostly, you had to do everything you can to save your own life first.
Exactly.
And I did that. I did that first.
Finally. I tell people, I go, and I tell a parent, or I tell anybody who wants to help anybody else, I go, it's just like an airline. I go, when you go on an airplane, what do they tell you on on the safety thing?
Put your air mask on first, your oxygen mask on first.
Oxygen, before you save anybody else, you have to put your own on first.
Right. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. You can't. I go, a dead person can't save anybody, but somebody alive and breathing can probably save the guy next to him.
Right.
Exactly. But if you deprive yourself of that, then you will lay dead next to that person. And as an analogy, not as, not physically, but that's what happens,
Right.
And that's what the craziness of it, because as parents dealing with their children out there, we run this circle around the substance use disorder person, and we run this circle around them, trying to save them, trying to put a pillow under every fall they have. Well, we can't do that. Just like our little kids, we can't save them from scraping their knees and everything.
And we don't want to. That's how they learn.
But we do, I mean, as a kid, we never had, knee pads and elbow pads and helmets and shit like that. You know, you
We
ran
didn't even have
into you
seatbelts.
were you know what you were afraid of? If you tore your clothes and you had to go home and your
Right.
mom found out,
Yeah.
you were going to get your ass kicked because you just tore your Levi's, you know, or so, you know, and it's just like, you know,
There
it
is
is
so
just like,
much truth in that, and I know we are past time, but I want to
Yes.
say, like, there's so
okay,
much truth in that. That wake up moment for me was putting my hand to the glass of my 17-year-old in jail and
right,
saying, "I can't get you out. I
right.
love you
And that's
too
what we had
much
to
to get you
realize too.
out."
Mhm.
Um,
When I first got into this, we never thought that we would say jail might be the option for our child, you know?
yeah, like this. That's
Yeah,
all there is because that's your only option. There's
right.
nothing else. You
There's
know.
nothing else. There's nothing else left. We become that shell of a human as well, you know, right along with them. So we're at our time.
We are.
I hate it
Yeah,
too
I know.
because I just
This
want to
is such a
say,
good
like, you
conversation.
tell those kids, like, I love you in your speeches, and when you go to talk to them, I want to tell you guys that I love you too, because I could sit here and talk to you guys all day. It is
I know
just
this actually turned out really well.
Yes,
it's so
absolutely.
good for my soul every time I
Yeah.
connect with another warrior out there,
Yes.
Well,
and
thank you.
that's
And
happened today.
Yes,
So
well, that's
absolutely.
one.
You guys too.
Yeah, we do love you, and thank
Oh,
you for inviting us to do this because I don't usually do things like this with our group. I'm very protective,
oh,
and when I started talking to you, Chrissy, I felt something different, and I go, we can do this, you know.
awesome.
And of course, we get a little apprehensive, you know, and it's just like, hey guys, I got something else for us, you know, and it's just like always coming up, you know, let's do this, you know, and it was worth it
Well,
every
this
minute
is
of
a
it.
safe space,
always
Yeah,
safe
for
and so,
anybody trying to
right.
change the world. This is a safe
This is, and
space.
we promote you. It is our job to
Yep.
spread this, like,
right.
Uh-huh.
like the drugs that are out there, like the hate that is out there.
We're gonna spread some
We
love.
spread this love as far and
Right.
wide as we
And
can.
I just want you to know that we've tagged. I've in the comments of this of the show of the live feed on Facebook. I've tagged your website, your Facebook page, and the book. If there's anything else that you want me to tag or put in there,
No,
you're
well,
welcome
you'll
to
find us.
add to the comments.
We have a private page called Not One More War Against Drugs. We have thousands of people on there, but it's also a safe place for people because if somebody comes on there and
Right.
actually is stalking somebody or what do you call it, a marketer comes on there trying to find, you know, get somebody into their rehab or something like that, we don't endorse that. So
Oh, thank God. Yes.
Group.
it's a group
Where
thing and you can voice your
chat
opinion.
and
Yeah.
it is closed, so we do see who is coming in type of
Yeah.
thing.
And we can
Good.
definitely kick people off of it. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Awesome.
if they come in there and get we don't condone any type of negativity arguments or
Yeah.
anything like that on there. And there's
Right.
plenty of pages for that, just not on ours.
Right.
Yes.
Well, Christina and I would love to be invited to the
Okay.
page.
Yeah,
if you
invite
like.
We'll do
us,
that.
please.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not. Just look it up. Not one more war against drugs, and it's
Okay.
not the governmental war against drugs that everybody thinks it is. It's our war against drugs with the parents, families, and friends that are dealing with
The
this.
war we
Right.
fight
Yeah.
every day
Yeah.
in active addiction.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, ladies. We do
Thank you
appreciate
so
it. Christina,
much.
it was Christina, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, thank you, ladies. We really enjoyed talking
Yeah,
with
thank
you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes.
And maybe I don't know if we'll get another chance to do this, but if you guys ever want us, we can get some other people here too.
Absolutely.
Well, I intend for you
Absolutely.
guys to come back. I
Yes.
think there's a lot more to discuss.
There is. We could, like you said, we can go on for hours on
Yeah.
this.
There's just too
You
much. Yeah.
just warmed us up, you know. So, anyways,
All
right
right.
on.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you
so
so
much.
much.
All right. Well, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
I know we've overextended and we've been doing that, but that's, and it's just kind of happened, not because we've been late, because we
Right.
run out of gas and car trouble, but it just happens. And that's how you know the conversation is good and needs to be had, because it just keeps going. I want you to take away self-work from today. If there's something that you're seeing when you look in the mirror,
Mhm.
if you're so busy pointing fingers at others around you, take a step back, look in the mirror, do some self-work. So good for the soul. I also want to shout out a community event called Prayer in the Park that's going to be Saturday, November 9th from 10 to 12. And I'm going to post the actual flyer because there's not a page, but it'll be at Oxford Park on Asbury Street off of Highway 81. Since September 2018, the number of suicides in our community has increased. There have been 8. Actually, there's 9 now that this organization is personally aware of, and they range from 12 years old to 53 years old. One they say one is too many, but 8, which is really 9. I think it may even be 10. I think there's one that they're still trying to figure out if it was or not.
What day is that? I'm sorry.
It's November 9th. I'm actually going to post the flyer as
Okay.
well. It's sponsored by the New Hope Project, which is another sister kind of organization to Never Too Late in our community. There needs to be more. There's so much food at the table, and so I encourage and support people who are doing the same things that I'm doing because of their different perspectives and what they bring to the table. So I'm going to post it for you guys. I encourage you to come out. I also encourage you. We did not have our Never Too Late support group meeting last night, but we will have it next Wednesday at American Realty from 6 to 7. I'm really trying to bring some, and this kind of hit home even more so, a kindness campaign that would run throughout our school systems um, to help combat, suicide and addiction and mental
Yep.
health, all of it as a whole. I'm really starting to see us organically grow into this united front.
Yes. I'm going to say powerhouse.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Got a weird look. Also, I wanted to say on Sunday, this Sunday, Rockdale House for Men and Women will be having their open house from 2 to 4 p.m. So, they're looking for a lot of community support. So if you can, please stop by. It's going to be just a great event. Please stop by. I will be there.
I will not. I will be coming back from I'm going on a
You'll be in
healing retreat.
Florida.
So
Yes. Well, thank y'all, Facebook. Thank you, YouTube.
thank you,
Bye,
Facebook, YouTube. Bye, YouTube.
And